Hey everyone, if you are a parent, an entrepreneur, an employee working away, and you have found yourself in a place where you feel stuck, you feel like you can't move forward, and maybe you see what you want to do, you want to make a greater impact, you want to be showing up differently day to day, but you keep getting stuck and can't move forward. You find yourself in that limbo zone where it's like, well, I don't know what to do next. I don't have the roadmap to move forward. In many cases, what that is that you've been waiting for the right time, for someone to almost say yeah, now's the time, go do the thing. Now you can go and do this. And so we want to talk about that because I want you to stop waiting for that permission slip. There is no permission slip coming to be like, now is the right time. Trust me, now is the right time for you to start stepping into who it is that you could be, and stop waiting for approval from others to use your gifts and your superpowers to make the impact that only you can make. I want you to hear this. You are the only person that has the combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences that you have. So you're the only person who can make the impact you can make. So stepping into this new version of yourself doesn't require permission from anybody. And so we want to dive into that, so that you can really start to see what that would look like. Now, I know I've been there. I used to think that I had to wait for some sort of a authority figure or whatever to tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, it's okay. You can go ahead and take the next step from here. But what I learned, and I'm hoping you can take away from this, is that waiting for permission is really just procrastination in disguise. And for years I told myself the right invitation would come my way. The thing would show up, but those invitations, they rarely show up. Most of the doors that I've walked through in my life, I had to open those doors myself. I had to step through them. Yeah, opportunity was on the other side, but I had to take the courageous first step, not wait for someone to come and let me in. So I spent way too long waiting for someone else to say all right, you're good enough. You're ready. You can go for it. But the truth is that's never going to be coming. That permission that I know I needed had actually been mine all along to just give to myself. And I just waited far too long. And so I want to help you with this today. Now, of course, I do this usually at the top of every video. If you're new here, welcome to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake. So glad you're able to be here. If you've seen other videos before, you're back again. Welcome back. I'm excited to see you again. Now, let me ask you a couple questions that might ground this a little bit more for you. Have you caught yourself in waiting for that external validation? Waiting before you make any sort of a move that you already know that you wanted to make. Maybe it's waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe you're waiting for your boss or your spouse or someone of authority to give you the green light, or maybe you feel like you're just waiting to feel qualified enough to move forward. I need someone to be like, yeah, you're ready. And if that hits home, this is not about being indecisive or incapable, and you're not alone in these feelings. You're running into this external authority dependency that just people don't realize. And that's a term that others use that kind of fits what this is. It's a trap where you convince yourself that permission has to come from the outside before you're allowed to step forward. And it shows up in all sorts of ways. As a parent, you might want to chase some sort of personal goal or invest in your own growth, but you feel guilty, you need someone else to say, hey, it's okay to want more than just providing for your family. And the truth is, modeling personal authority, for your kids is one of the best gifts that you could actually give them. As an entrepreneur, maybe you've got a bigger vision for your business, but you've been waiting for the validation from the market or an investor before you trust your instincts. As an employee, maybe you see these opportunities that you could go step into, but you're waiting for your boss or the company to recognize your potential before you advocate for yourself. Now, here's the reality. Waiting for permission isn't caution. It isn't a humility. It really is fear. It's fear wearing a disguise that you just haven't recognized. It's handing over your authority, hoping that someone else will carry the weight of the decisions that you've been able to make all along. And so let's dive deep into this. Now, of course, in case you're wondering, I said, my name is Jake, but let me just introduce myself. I'm Jake Talbert. I'm the founder. I'm the author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. Everything we're going to cover today is grounded in principles from the book. Came out last November. Right now, it's available on Amazon for as little as $2. That's the best $2 you could invest in yourself. So I put a link down in the description where you can go get it. Or you can pause the video, open up your Amazon app, and go look up The Giver Method by Jake Talbert. It immediately became an Amazon bestseller, has tons of 5-star reviews. And the reason why is that parents, entrepreneurs, employees who are working in those corporate atmospheres, they love it because all of the stories that I tell are my stories grounded in the same reality, the same path that you're walking. I am a father of 3. I'm an entrepreneur. I've worked in that sea of cubicles inside of corporate life. And so the exercise, the action items, everything in here is grounded in things that you could go do right now without having to burn everything down, go move to the woods to find yourself, or rearrange your entire life. No, everything's designed to fit right into the schedule you already have. So I recommend you get yourself a copy. Like I said, what we're talking about today is grounded in just part of what's in here. So pause the video, go get yourself a copy, come back and finish it, because I promise you, this will change your life. You know, one of the stories I always like to tell is like that fits so perfectly with this, like, the moment I realized I was making everyone else responsible for my own dreams, like, you know, I was waiting for my boss or my wife, my parents, and even industry experts waiting to tell me like that I was ready. But the truth was, like, responsibility is mine. The breakthrough, like, was realizing that, you know, some sort of a maturity or whatever, it doesn't come like from waiting. It comes from like authorizing yourself, like being ready to move forward. And the insight that changed everything is like, only permission that actually matters is the one that you give yourself. That's an acceptance. That's an authenticity. Like self-authorization, it's not being arrogant, or it is truthfully a maturity in who you're becoming. It's owning the choices that you're making and your potential, knowing that you want to make that greater impact. So I'm going to dive into 4 areas, very practical strategies that I've used to help parents and entrepreneurs and employees, like, just like you, stop waiting for that external validation, giving themselves permission to like act. They're not just confidence tips, like they're true frameworks that you can put into your life. Once again, it's not about arrogance or ignoring counsel from others. It's great to have those healthy relationships that get stronger, you know, when you know, you collaborate on a choice, but the choice is still yours. So stop making others carry that weight. You know, your unmade decisions, like you free yourself of this, like you free them of it, and then you can actually have better relationships, but you can actually start to make progress faster. Like I said, it's grounded in the GIVER method, because your gifts, like as part of the GIVER method, we help you discover your gifts and your superpowers. Like, they don't need someone else's stamp of approval for impact. They just need your permission to be expressed daily. And so if you want to dive deeper, like I said, get yourself a copy of it. Tons of practical tools for you. At the same time, if you're like, hey, I'd love to have someone walk me through it one-on-one, check out the video or the link down below that talks about our coaching program. You can check out the video on that page, read the details. And if it makes sense for you to book a call to discuss more, we can definitely do that. If you run a team, have a podcast, an event, a stage, a community, whatever, where this message could serve them, let's talk about how we could bring it to them in a very real and practical way. There's a link down there for that as well. And of course, before we jump in, hit subscribe, tap that bell for notifications, like the video, and of course, drop a comment of what lands for you along the way. I love to read them and to reply back, or to help navigate new content based off what people are saying. With that, like, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into these 4 very key strategies, you know, that help you stop waiting for permission and start living with your own authentic authority. And so the first one is how you notice where you've actually handed over the steering wheel as a part of this. Like, when have you given up that thing? So it's think of it this way. I like to title it as like, you know, you're spotting your permission traps that are there. Because the truth is, like, you can't change what you don't see. Like, we have to be able to see it. Most of us don't even realize how often we've been handing our authority over to somebody else. And because, like, you think you're being responsible, I get it. You know, you're being respectful, you're being cautious, but really, you're just waiting for the green light that isn't coming. And so the first move, if you wanted to really move forward past this, is that you have to break free from the whole, like, permission-seeking cycle. You know, you got to be honest, like, you know, about the places in your life where you've been outsourcing decisions. And so here's a couple of areas that you could focus on as a part of that. The first one would be, like, maybe you do some sort of an inventory or a check on the permission that you've been doing. Like, write down every area that you've been, you know, waiting for someone else to give you a nod, whether it's a career move, a personal goal, a family decision, money choices, a project, creative, like, whatever, name it. And then ask yourself, like, what would it look like if I just gave myself permission today? You know, you don't have to act on it. Just notice how much your life is stuck in a waiting room, and how much more eye-opening it is when it's like, oh my gosh, I could just move past, I could do something, even if it was something little. And then spot the difference between advice and approval. Like, there's a whole world of difference between asking for counsel from somebody and asking for permission. Wise counsel is gathering perspectives while you still hold the pen to sign off on it. Permission seeking is handing someone else the pen and saying, hey, you write my story for me. You know, pay attention to the language you use. Like, do you say, like, hey, I need to ask if I can, or like, hey, I want to gather some input. I want to get their input before I make that decision. And then, you know, find those triggers for you. Who or what flips your I need this permission switch. You know, for some people, like, it's individuals, it's people, it's family. You know, you want their blessings before you chase their dream. For others, it could be a boss or a spouse, or, you know, even the vague, like, you know, society's approval. You know, once you know what the triggers are, those individuals, like, recognize them. You know, you can see them faster, and then the next time they show up, you can start to use some of the things we're going to talk about to navigate past that. And then check whose authority you're borrowing. Sometimes we carry around voices that don't even belong in the conversation. Maybe you're still looking for your parents' approval decisions that you need to make when you're 40. Maybe you're waiting for your manager, who never actually promised to be a career gatekeeper. Like, once again, whose permission do I think I need here, and why do I think I need that? Just process that in your brain. And then watch for those I'm not ready yet lies that you tell yourself. Like, a lot of the time, the I'm not ready, it's just a code for I haven't given myself permission. Readiness usually comes in action. We're going to talk a lot about that later. It doesn't come before you take action. The awareness in this scenario is where power comes. You can't break free from a trap that you don't even know that you're in. And so when you see the places that you've been just waiting or realizing something, you realizing that you're just waiting on someone else to give you that permission, something huge is going to happen. Weird. Nobody else is holding the keys. The permission you've been waiting for, it's already yours to give yourself. You have to start doing that. There's tons of data and research out there about this concept. People who start recognizing their validation seeking patterns and just start making even small decisions on their own, they start to report faster, whether they have more confidence, stronger relationships, and higher life satisfaction within weeks to months. That could be you feeling that in the next couple weeks to months. So if you're serious about stepping into the next chapter, then this is where it begins. Notice what you've been waiting for, reclaim that authority to be yours, and use these other 3 strategies to help with that. So the second one is how small wins create confidence. I already I alluded to it. So think of it you need to build your permission muscle. So instead of waiting until you feel ready, this strategy teaches you how to build the self-authorization skill by starting with small permission slips, and gradually expanding them to large decisions. You create evidence of your capability to make good choices in your own judgment. This sort of progressive self-authorization, sort of a framework, I guess. That's a really technical way of calling it. Basically recognizes that confidence comes from taking action, not from waiting to feel confident. That's one of the biggest things. The map appears when you're in motion. You have to start doing something. You're not waiting to feel confident. You can develop the trust in your own decision making by practicing these low stake choices before moving into the really significant ones. And so you can also do this idea of a daily authority building. Give yourself one small permission each day that you might normally seek validation for. You might be choosing the restaurant without polling everyone what they want to eat. Might be sending the email that you've been hesitating about, or expressing an opinion without first checking if others agree. The goal is to build this self-authorization muscle through consistent small choices. And of course, you can always practice there's that first step commitment that you could make. Each time that your permission inventory, you identify the very first step you could go take without needing someone's approval. It might want to be that you want to change careers. The first step might just be updating a part of your resume, or having an informal conversation with somebody. If you want to start some sort of creative project, you might be spending 30 minutes researching or writing a page. You don't have to, you just take the first step within the first 24 to 48 hours of identifying what that thing would be. You don't have to take all 50 steps that there would be, just one. What's the first step? And it's amazing how much more confidence that creates. And then there's also value-based decision making, which is something huge I cover in so many videos. Anchor your choices to authentic core values that you have, not what others' expectations are. That way when you're facing a decision, you can ask well, which option honors my core values, rather than which option will others approve of. It helps you make choices that create energy rather than drain it. Let's work with your authentic self, not against it. And then build in your own personal internal authority evidence process. Track the decisions that you make on your own. Hey, I made my own judgment and I decided I'm doing this thing, and then note what the outcomes were. Keep some sort of a simple log. Hey, today I decided blank, without asking for approval. And the result from that was this happened. Once again, it creates concrete proof that your judgment is trustworthy. It seems simple, but it's rewiring your brain to see your choices as good choices. And then of course that 24-hour decision container, personal choices that don't require extensive consultation or research. Give yourself that window we talked about. What's the 24-hour decision? I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something, and I'm going to take action. That's what goes along with that 48-hour window. The other thing to think about is a lot of people I often get stuck because they're trying to create the perfect version of something. And I always say version 1 outperforms version none. And if you keep waiting for perfect or the right time or the right thing, you never get to version 1 even. You learn so much in version 1. So you may need to look at this sort of idea of a 70-30 rule. Act when you have maybe 70% of the information you need and reserve 30% for learning through the experience. Like perfect certainty, it's rarely even possible. And it leaves so many people staying stuck in situations that no longer serve them. Now, this is going to build so much genuine confidence, because confidence comes from evidence, not from some sort of encouragement. Each time that you make the decision based on your own choice, your own authority, your own authentic self, and you see any sort of a positive result, you just build this proof that your judgment is very trustworthy, and create this upward spiral that increases confidence that leads you to better decisions down the road. Tons of the data and studies out there show that people that do this sort of a thing develop stronger decision-making capabilities within the first 3 to 6 months. Way different than those who are continuing to look for some sort of external permission or validation. The key is starting small and building evidence that you can trust your own judgment. That takes us to the third area, which is like how you own your choices and still keep your relationship strong. Like this is you want to think of it this way: you lead your life without losing your people. Because a big fear people have is that they start giving themselves permission. Is like, well, if I start making my own decisions, won't I upset people I care about? Won't it come off as selfish? And I get that. Like, I totally understand, especially if you're a parent or a spouse or part of some sort of a team. Like, you don't want to bulldoze over the people closest to you. But the truth is, healthy relationship, like, are built on some of these decisions. When your relationships actually can get stronger because of you take responsibility for your own choices, because when you're constantly outsourcing decisions, you're not protecting that relationship. You're quietly putting the weight of life on somebody else's shoulders. And so this step is about learning how to balance the authority with that connection. And so you can absolutely make decisions for yourself and still honor the people that matter most to you. And yeah, there'll be some that you do need to include: your spouse, your partner, your boss, your team, whatever. But this is about finding those ones that you can open up and just go with yourself. And so how you find that balance? One, communication is going to be the biggest thing. You have to communicate with confidence without closing some sort of a door. So instead of like, hey, what do you think I should do? Approach it from like hey, here's what I'm leaning towards, and I would love your perspective. Like, just, do you see the difference there? You're inviting input while still owning your choices. I'm going this way. What do you think? Ask for input, not permission. Be very specific. Like, hey, what challenges do you see with this? What info am I missing? What am I not thinking about? Don't hand over the steering wheel, by asking like, hey, do you think I should? That's not counsel. Like, that's abdication of your decision. So invite them in. There's ownership language you want to use. So like, rather than saying like, everyone thinks I should, it's like, hey, I've decided to, whatever it is. I've decided to do this thing. That shift alone, like, it shows so much more maturity, and it builds respect. Like, you no longer are hiding behind the crowd. You're standing in your own authority. And then you hold boundaries with kindness. Like, when someone tries to take the reins, you practice being like, hey, I appreciate the concern. This is something that I need to decide for myself. Hey, I value that input. I do. Ultimately, this is one that is mine to make. Boundaries don't have to be harsh, to be firm against others. Filter both through your values. Once again, this is about being selfish. Hey, how do I honor what matters most to me while caring for the people I love? Man, that totally changes so that your choices serve both growth and connection. Be prepared for pushback. Some people won't like some sort of new independence that you're showing, especially if you've been used to just waiting for them to give you the green light. And that's okay. You can care about their feelings without letting their reactions run your life. Their disappointment is theirs to manage. It's not yours to fix. Give permission back. So like, model the same thing. When someone else comes to you for approval, flip it and ask them like, well, what feels right to you? That question invites them to take their own authority back and make their own decisions. Once again, now we're building together. Real relationships are not built on constant permission back and forth. They're built from two people like standing on their own choices and respecting each other enough to show up authentically. And when you stop asking others to carry the weight of your life, like, you're going to free them, and it frees you so much more. So don't buy the lie that owning your choices means you could lose people. The truth is, it's how you create healthier and more honest and more respectful connections. And that takes us to the fourth and final area. So how do you bring your natural strengths to the table without needing anyone to stamp of approval as a part of that? The G in the GIVER method is all about your gifts and your superpowers. So I want you to stop waiting. Let's start using our gifts and our superpowers right now. Most people, like, this is a truth they miss. The gifts, the superpowers you have, they don't need a permission slip to be used. They don't need some fancy title or certification or someone tapping you on the shoulder saying like, now you can go do that. Now you're allowed to use it. Your strengths already have value. especially like the second you start using them to impact anybody. And here's what happens. A lot of us hide the very things that come easiest to us. We wait until someone recognizes them or asks for them or validates them. And in the meantime, people could have been helped by our strengths. They could have been impacted. They never get the value you can create. So this step is all about flipping the script. Instead of waiting for validation, give yourself permission to put your gifts to work. And so let's talk about how you activate those things today. Number one, spot the gifts, the superpowers, the things that you've been holding back. Make a list of what are all the abilities that you keep waiting for other people to invite you to use. Maybe it's to teach, maybe it's leading, organizing, creating something, encouraging, whatever comes naturally to you. Ask yourself, like, which of these am I sitting on because like I'm waiting for someone else to green light it, to approve it, to say like, yeah, that has value. Trust me, it has value. You know, then like find the ways to sneak your gifts and your superpowers and what you're already doing. Like I said, that's about the tasks and the things that we want to do in your life as a busy parent, entrepreneur, or someone working away, that you don't have to burn down everything and start from scratch, you know, or move away to the woods to find yourself. It's like, nope, let's start using them with what we already do. We don't need the big stage to start. If you're a natural encourager, you know, drop a word of support to a coworker or your kid. If you're big on organization, like fix one system that's been driving everyone nuts. You know, that's the stealth of gift expression, like serving the people right where you are in the ways that you would already be around them. You know, flip the question, like stop asking yourself, like, am I good enough? That's a big thing I see with people's gifts and superpowers. You know, ask like, how could this help someone else? Value comes from serving, not from like proving yourself in any sort of way. You know, and then here's the thing, give without asking first. Look around at life right now. I guarantee there are people waiting. Like, where could your strengths add value without needing anyone's approval? Maybe it's solving a problem you see, or creating a resource, or offering a fresh perspective in a meeting. Don't wait to be invited. Just bring it. Just do it. And then pay attention to the response you get. Like, notice when people naturally come to you for help in certain areas. Notice when your contributions lighten someone else's load or spark energy in the room. Once again, that's evidence. That's your proof that your gifts matter, because not because someone told you, but because they can see the difference. They can feel the difference. They're coming to you for that reason. And then offer your gifts with confidence. Don't shrink. Don't add some sort of a disclaimer like, hey, I'm not an expert, but like, hey, I've got experience with it. Let me help you. You know, own what you know. Own what you can do. Like, it's absolutely amazing when you step into that. And then you could easily start choosing opportunities you want to pursue based on your strengths. When you decide where you want to spend your time, don't ask like, will people think I'm qualified for that? Like, hey, does this let me use my strengths in a meaningful way? That's where you're going to feel the most alive. You know, your gifts were designed to create energy when, like, they create so much energy when you use them, not when you're sitting on them or they're sitting on the shelf or you're waiting for some sort of validation. The moment you give yourself permission to use them, you find that you're going to be way less drained, more engaged, and more impactful. Like I said, you are the only person with your combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences. You're the only person who can make the impact that you can make right now. People are literally waiting for the impact that you can make. Stop waiting for the damn permission slip. Just start finding the ways that you can show up for the people around you. You know, stop waiting for someone else to say you're ready. You know, you've been ready. Your gifts are already valuable. The only question is, are you willing to just authorize yourself to use them in the most meaningful ways to the people around you? Now, as we wrap this all up, you know, here's the thing I want you to take away from today. That you're waiting for a permission slip it's not some gosh, you're not being humid. You know, it's not humility. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's not respect. You're handing over a steering wheel of your life to someone else, hoping that they're going to drive where you want to go. You know, it's not their job, it's yours. Just own that. The things we talked through today, they aren't just like these like confidence hacks. They're about reclaiming your authority, you know, and the kind that was yours from the beginning. When you spot those patterns, you find the small ways to build the proof. You lean into like the autonomy, making healthy choices. You know, when you finally stop waiting for someone else to start, you know, recognize it, to start using your gifts or whatever it might be. Like, when you do these things, life changes. You stop waiting for approval. You start moving with authority that comes from within. And trust me, all the data, research, and on everything out there says that, you know, within days, weeks, months, you will feel like a completely different person. You'll show up differently, and new doors and opportunities will open themselves to you because of it. Now, the kicker is, like, the thing to take it, like, your permission that you've been waiting for, no one else is going to give it to you. It's yours. It's been yours this whole time. Like, this isn't about arrogance. Like, think about it from that maturity standpoint. Like, it's you stepping in and saying, hey, my choices, like, I'm going to own them. I'm going to own my potential because I know I can create the impact I can make. And the funny thing is, the respect, the recognition, opportunities, they're just waiting. They usually show up after you start moving forward, not before you do. That's the heart of the giver method. You don't, like, your gifts, they don't need this stamp of approval. They don't need anyone else to say, now you're good enough. They need you to just be awake and present and willing to use them authentically, because the world misses out every time that you hide these strengths, waiting for permission that no one else, that's never been at someone else's to give. And so, like I said, if that hits home for you today, go get yourself a copy of The Giver Method. The link's in the description. You can go to Amazon, look up The Giver Method by Jake Talbert. It's available for as little as $2 right now. Go get yourself a copy. Like, it makes a massive difference in what you'll do. It's going to walk you through step by steps, the process of expressing your gifts with confidence and building the life that feels aligned and alive again. If you're ready, like, if you're like, man, I love the idea, but I'd love some more personal help working through this, then check out the coaching page I have below. Watch the video, check out the details. Like, it may make sense that us working together one-on-one is the right choice. And if so, then you could book a call. We could discuss that deeper. And I love speaking to people's teams or companies, communities, events, podcasts, whatever, about this sort of a shift, because, like, let's let the real, whole groups of people who are waiting, who are stuck, waiting for this permission slip. Like, let's help them. So if you have that sort of a platform, let's get this message in front of them. You check out the speaking and podcasting link. And then before you go, please subscribe to the channel, tap that bell, like the video, and comment below, which strategy hit for you today? What permission are you finally ready to give yourself? Because if you remember, like, your life isn't, it's not waiting for you. Like, the authority you've been looking for is already yours. The question is, are you ready to stop waiting and start authorizing yourself to live? The permission slip has your name on it and always has. So use it, pick it up, start running with it, and start making the impact that only you can make. Check out the other videos on the channel. There's all sorts of things, other topics and such that we use to help you with these sort of areas. With that, have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in our next video.